Okay. Okay, so today I would like to kind of continue with the theme that we were talking about before last week. Last week was the spirit in you. This is not necessarily a part two, but it's very close to that. And what I want to show is the covenant that was within you in the first place, or that it is in you in the first place. And that covenant was laid in you from the very beginning, or even before the beginning of the world, by spirit and not by a letter. Because we have to consider that Adam and Eve came into the earth, okay, came into this world, the physical world, and they didn't have anything written for them. They had something that was already in them. Now, everyone went off. And so we all went off course. Obviously, we fell. But there's something that has to bring us back, something that has to bring us back to the Father. And this is where all the commotion is coming in, where, you know, people get their different religions. And based upon that religion, their religion is trying to tell them how certain things are supposed to be done, how they come back to whatever their religion feels that they should be coming back to. Well, so laws had to be put together, or, you know, and that's what the laws are for. The laws were put into place because people fell from the covenant that was already within them by spirit and not by letter. We actually were removed from that, but based upon our activities, our actions, and of course we lost memory, like we were talking about the memory last week, okay? And we were talking about the rainbow and the fact that we're the ones who have to remember, because we're the ones who lost the memory. Now, of course, when we lose the memory of all that we could do, all that we have been and can do, then we become subject to whatever reality we find ourselves in, with no memory of anything else. So we find ourselves in this third dimensional world, not knowing how to keep ourselves living longer, not knowing how to consciously create certain realities about ourselves. And we have actually fallen prey to those who have moved off course in service of themselves. And we have actually moved into the area that we are also serving those individuals, and that's what we're actually creating. So now we have to wake up, and in order to wake up, we have to know that in our fall, we have become like children, and so we're actually kind of demoted in a sense to a lower state of being, and so now we have to wake up to higher things. And it's all a cycle. It's a cycle, because whatever, it's like whatever comes down, okay, has to go up, and whatever goes up in this physical world has to come back down based upon gravity. But that which has come down to the earth, also, it doesn't belong to the earth. So at some point, whatever is holding it in the earth has to let it go. And that's why when the physical body goes, the physical body has to go to where it came from. But that which is animating the physical body, that has to also go back to where it came from. Now, what I would like us to do is start by going to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And this one may take a little time to develop, but nevertheless, at the end of it, we should, hopefully we have a great understanding of where we're trying to go today. Okay. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and look at verse 9. This is in verse 9. Okay, so this is where we find ourselves right now before we return. Okay, it says, "For we know in part," and we don't know fully anymore because we fell from that. We fell from what we knew which was in fullness for the dimension that we were in, but we had fallen to a lower density or a lower frequency. So now we know only in part. We don't know what we knew before, which was also in part to that which was higher. Okay? So here we go now, but it's a lot more than what we know. I'm talking about, it's like you think about yourself accessing the internet and accessing all the information that's available on the internet, and it's just there. Well, if there was no internet, you would have no way of accessing that. Well, think of that which you were before as a type of internet that we became disconnected from. Our modem or whatever went bad, virus, whatever the situation is, but now we don't have that anymore. Okay, so what we're looking at is just the reality that we could see around us, and that's where we're going until we get that connection back. So without it, we know in part. Okay, so we know in part, and we prophesy in part. We speak of certain things in part because we don't know everything anymore. Okay, but when that which is perfect comes, and think about it, you had this before the fall, that which is in part will vanish away because it replaces it. That which is higher and has more claim to your soul and is going to awaken us. When the light shines in, the darkness has to be moved out. So the more light that starts to come in, the more darkness that has to go out. And when there's light, when light comes in, it causes us to see. But in the darkness, we stumble because we can't see very well. It says, when I was a child, it's comparing this now to when I was a child, when I didn't know that much, I was mature. I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. And that's exactly what it is in our spiritual walk. We come into this world and we could be 90 years old. If we're not awake, we're going to be speaking as that spiritual child, which is stuck in just understanding the physical things around us. It's all we know, and we could only make comparisons based upon the physical things that we understand. Okay, because we have nothing around us to say, well, to make a comparison to based upon anything spiritual, because we don't understand anything spiritual. All we see are the physical things around us. So we're lost in that sense. So the higher things, we're not awakening ourselves to higher things. We only see what is around. Okay, so now let's go over to Galatians. Okay, so there's something that has to help us to wake up. Okay, something that has to help us to wake up. So we all fell, and if you remember the law, it tells us, you know, what was the purpose of the law? That's the law of Moshe. Well, the purpose of the law of Moshe was the fact that we fell and something had to catch us from the area that we were at and bring us back to the area that we were once again connected to Messiah, because we fell away from that. So everyone has to be met where they fell to. Okay, remember we spoke about everything coming from the most holy place, which is what we call Yahweh, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, coming down through the holy place, coming to the altar, okay, which is where heaven and earth meets, and then everything south of that altar is what the scripture is calling under the altar. Now we have fallen under the altar, and the altar is it would be the heart. Remember we spoke about that, the altar being in your physical body where the heart would be. But what Moshe has set up is actually the temple. Okay, it's a temple that is a replication of your temple, but it's a replication of a higher temple above, which the higher temple
is set up in the very same manner in which the physical body is set up. The physical body is a bunch of beings, organs, whatever you want to call it, atoms, cells that are all working together as a unit. Now you take that to the higher world that's guided, directing this world, and there is a body also of different beings, souls, okay, that's working together as a unit. If you remember that the apostles had everybody come together, and they actually had a movement where everybody functioned as one, and nobody claimed that anything was theirs, but they all came and gave the apostles, laid certain things down at the apostles' feet, and everybody got as they needed. This is the kind of body that is above, okay? And this is a temple in the very same manner. Temples where we lost sight of that. Okay, this is why we do things for self today. We don't want to help anybody because because there's nothing in it for us possibly. So we don't want to go into that manner. We want to make sure that we're getting something out of it. These are things to serve, that we have in us based upon our fall, that is there to serve self. We have this certain mechanism in us that wants things for the self, because we don't know that the other brother is part of self. In our bodies, we would make sure that we eat the right things to make sure that we're healthy. So those folks inside of us, they could actually, when something try to invade the body, we have fed the armies in such a manner that they're ready to fight. These are individuals that's inside. In the higher world, your soul is part of a body. However, you're just functioning in an aspect of you is just functioning in the earth. But if you remember, there's a part of you that appears before the Father day and night. They call it this. They said, make sure that you treat everybody nicely down here, because their Malik does appear before the Father. This is an aspect of that which is in the holy place, serving in the holy place. They call those the Malik, okay? And they have access to the Father day and night on your behalf, or the part of their, or on behalf of the part of them that's within or inside the earth or below the altar, that's walking in the valley of shadow of death, that's sojourning through the earth for a temporary time. So a law had to be given for all of us who came under the altar, but we did it by choice. And so now what we have, we were below the altar, and below the altar now, the chakra that's below the altar is what you call the belly, okay? Or, the one that is the guts. Now, if you notice what's going in the gut, that chakra that's in the belly, it's your will. It's the will. But unless that will is connected to or has given itself over to the higher purpose, it's going to do its own will in this earth. And that's what you and I have been subjected to do our own will, because of the fact that we were following after those who were doing their own will. So below that now, what you have is the sacral chakra, which is where creation comes. So we're going to create based upon that which is our own will, if we don't have the higher things connected anymore. So the creation in the of those who are under the altar or in this physical world, who has fallen to the point that we were talking about, down to the place that you would consider the valley or shadow of death, or it said a 1/3, the tail did draw 1/3 and cast them to the ground, and that ground now is the tail. The tailbone is the base chakra. Now, if you wonder why the serpent, okay, the curse of the serpent, if you remember, was that it would be slithering around on its belly, because that's what it does. It will be doing its own will. And you and I being stuck under what the serpent has deceived us into, we find ourselves slithering around on our own belly, our own will, creating the things based upon our own will, which are things of a base nature, unless we have given ourselves over to the Father's will. Now, so a law had to come in to help us, to release us from under this altar or the valley or shadow of death, where we are dealing with base nature, okay? Doing things of our own will. No one could tell us what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, whom to do it with, because it's our own will, okay? And we're creating in that manner. And those who we have fallen to, they love this, because we're not going to go back to the heavenly body once we're in this darkness. We can't do that. So a law had to be given because we forgot everything. And the law had to meet us where we were. Every last one of us has to meet us where we are. So in Galatians, let's go over to Galatians here, chapter 3. Okay. So a law is going to meet us now, and the law is attempting to take us back out of what we have fallen into and to connect us back with Messiah, which is above. Okay? So we have to come to the altar, which is where heaven and earth meets, and then we have to cleanse ourselves in order to go back into the area where we fell from, which is ministering in the temple above. We have to get back to that. So a law is given for us to exercise here, so we may wake up. So we may meditate upon this law day and night. We may be woken up, and then we are moving to the Father, and we reconnect. Now, let's look at Galatians chapter 3, and let's look at verse 23. Okay? Okay. So it says, but before the faith to come to us, we were guarded by in the power of the law. Before certain things came, we were guarded. I mean, this is a protection, and it's directing you slowly to something else, to this faith. Okay? Okay? Being shut up together until faith in Messiah, which is the only begotten Son, not Yeshua, would be revealed. Revealed from within. As we are taking in the law and the prophets is light, and this is going to help us to start seeing. But not if we're breaking that law. If we're breaking that law, which is the foundation of things, we're not going to see. We can't see. And we have other spirits that are ready to take us from that, but the law is going to take us from one aspect of the law to understand on higher ground, and so we're going to be learning. But if you don't understand more than what Moshe has set up, stay there. Stay where that is, because that's not sin. That has already been ratified for you and I to take on to lead us out of here. But as we are meditating upon that law, just like David and Solomon, whatever the case is, and Yeshua, from that, something is being awakened in us, because in that is the law and the prophets. And as the scripture tells us, if it's not according to the laws and the prophets, there's no light in it. So the light is coming in through that law that's been given. Okay? So here goes now. It says, so in this, the law is our teacher. Notice what it does, leading us to Messiah. It should tell us back to Messiah. It should lead us back to where we came from, because the only begotten Son is the creative aspect of the Father. And everything comes out of the only begotten Son. That's why it tells us nothing that is created was created without him. Okay? And all things that are created by him. And that's part of the three that bears witness above. Okay? So this is what we're talking about. Okay, so it's a teacher to lead us back to where we came from, so that we might be justified through the fact that we're waking up now, and based upon what you believe, when you're waking up, that's what you're going to be performing. That's what you see. That's what you know. That's what you become. Now, as we're coming up, don't think that they're not other spirits that's there to direct us off. Yes, because everyone wants to come and shovel us off in a different direction. But Yahweh tells us, be careful to stay right here and do this until the light breaks. When the light breaks out, now you know because you're awake. Just like Yeshua, just like the prophets. They have seen more than just the letter of the law. And so they could move beyond that based upon what they have seen, what have been shown to them. This is why Yahshua is telling us now, within himself, he said, I do only what I see and hear from my Father. Well, the Father has allowed the law to be set down. And when the light is shining, you and I are going to remember. This is the whole rainbow thing we looked at, because you and I are going to remember what we have lost. Not all at once, because you may be thrown into madness if it did. But little by little, you are going to be getting more and more and more of the light shining through. Okay. So he goes in verse 25 now. He says, but now that faith has come, and this says the faith, and it doesn't really matter. So faith has come. We are no longer under the training of that teacher. Now, it shouldn't say, this leads a lot of folks to say, okay, now that faith has come, we ain't got to worry about the law no more. Really, what it's telling you is, as you wake up by understanding the intent of the law, little by little, because you're not going to do it all at once, then you know that part of the law is not going to be holding you. You don't need to do those things. The garment that Moshe said to put up and to wear, remember, he said that was to remind you that you and I shouldn't stray. Well, what if you now are awake to the fact of the things that caused you to stray? And this is the spirit that now has awakened you to this. You remember, why do you need a garment anymore? Yet that was a law. Okay, why would you need that? Okay, now we talk about sacrificing a whole lot of times. And we see that the sacrificing could not actually, animals that is, sacrificing animals could not actually help you with your sins, because it was put in as a psychological mechanism, because that's what they believed already. But it couldn't by itself do anything. But it was there to remind us of the situation. Now, what if I would remember and work to put those things down within myself? Why would I need to bring forth a sacrifice? But yet that was what was prescribed. And that's what everyone did. Okay? So when you come to the place that you are understanding, why would you need that law? Now, Shaul is telling you, when I was a child, I did certain things as a child because I was young. I didn't understand. But as I grew up, I became more mature. I understood more. Then I got to deal with things as a man, someone who is fully grown. This is what's going on. Okay? So when that which is perfect comes, or should I say that which is more perfect comes, the partial parts of certain things is going to pass away, because the partial things are still obscured in darkness, because all the light didn't come to the people in Israel. It simply didn't come. Moshe had a lot more light than he gave to the children of Israel, because they didn't want it. They were afraid. Just as these people today tell us, they they deter us from seeking certain truth, and they put guards there in your mind, okay, to make sure you don't go any further. And those guards are there to scare you. That's all it is. It's there to scare you. Now, this doesn't mean that there's not some truth to you dabbling in certain things if you don't know what you're doing, because that's dangerous too. But they don't want you to play around with it, period, because you may wake up and know what's going on with them. Okay? So if you are faithful to your Father in heaven, then you will find guardianship as you go further, because it's going to teach you about those occult things, which simply means hidden. And that's how Yahweh works. He works through the cloud, which things are hidden in. And when he sees the rainbow, when he allows the rainbow to be seen in the cloud, it's all the mysterious things that he works through. This is all occult. Okay? Now, he's not the only one that's going to be working in this area, because he allows others to function there too, which you and I just don't want to go in there playing around. We want to make sure that we're guarded as we get into that area further and further and further. So now we see there's a school teacher. The school teacher is there to lead us to Messiah. What happens when Messiah comes? Well, it's telling you that you don't need a school teacher anymore. When you learn what the law is all about, you don't need to fulfill that particular law, because you're fulfilling it by your own activities that you're doing based upon what you know now is the real fulfillment of it. Now you look in the prophets and you'll see the prophets testifying of those very things. You look to the writings of Yeshua, or not the writings of Yeshua, but the writings about Yeshua that the apostles wrote and showed you how the man lived and the things that he did, how he spoke, and you'll see things telling you how to see that same law, helping you and I to graduate. And Moshe told us in the very same manner, he said, the one is coming. That's the one that's going to lead you from the school teacher that I'm giving you now and actually connect you, reconnect you. So we see the law as a school teacher. Now let's go over to Exodus real quick. Exodus chapter 34. Okay. Exodus 34, and we're going to look at we're going to start at verse 29. So 34, verse 29. Okay, so in verse 30, in chapter 34 and verse 29, 34 and verse 29, it says here, when Moshe came down from Mount Sinai, now Moshe had been on Mount Sinai in the cloud, and through the cloud, he was remembering things because he was opened and he was receiving a lot from the Father. Okay, so he was on Mount Sinai. Okay, not no tall mountain climbing up that you need ropes, somebody to pull you up. He was just in the highest state of consciousness. With the two top tablets of the testimony in his hand, Moshe did not know that his skin of his face was shining. It was light. Light that came for them to see what was happening. Because he had spoken to Yahweh, and his understanding was way above what it had been. Okay? When Aaron and the children of Israel saw Moshe, behold, the skin on his face was shining, and they were afraid to come near him. That's the one thing that's going to be happening. We see something, the light, and it's not usually what we are used to or what we have been programmed in. So the apprehension to go someplace else, it's scary. Well, Yahweh tells us how to go there. He says, trust in him. If you trust in him and you're going to do what he says and not get taken up by another spirit, you're going to have direction and guardianship if you do it the way he tells you to do it. But they were afraid because there was light coming. So notice what happened here now. It says that Moshe called to them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation, notice what happened. They returned to him. They returned. The reason why they returned is because they were going off. They didn't want to hear what Moshe had to say. They were actually falling away. So when Moshe said, okay, now I'm going to put a veil over my face, so when I speak to you, this light won't be so much that it'll totally cause you to get messed up because you're hearing things that's way beyond where you are right now. I'm going to meet you, or I have to meet you where you are. That's all he's saying. So we meet, so they were met, the children of Israel were met where they were. However, by the time of Shaul, if you remember, Shaul said, today when the law is read, there's still a veil. Because they didn't move very much further than where Moshe met them. Moshe met them where they were. Now, if you will here, okay, if you will, let's go over to John chapter 16. Okay, so there's a covenant that is there, and Moshe is about to want to give them this covenant that he has seen with Yahweh. He comes to give them this covenant, but he can't give it to them the way that he saw it. So he has to meet them where they are in order for them to get that covenant. Okay? So let's go to John chapter 16 and look at verse 12. John chapter 16 and look at verse 12. Okay. So he says here in verse 12, he said, I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. So what was Yahshua doing all the time? He still didn't want to tell them everything. Well, he was meeting them where they were. That's what he was doing. He was meeting his apostles where they were, and he knew, just like the children of Israel, if he was shining so much towards them that they couldn't bear it. He said that. They would be doing the very same thing the children of Israel did with Moshe. They would be leaving. They're like, nah, this is too much. We can't handle that. They'd be afraid of that. And so he would have to do the very same thing that Moshe did, which he did. He veiled what he was saying. He veiled it. Okay? Now let's go over to Exodus, okay? And look at what Yahweh did. Exodus chapter 6. Okay, and the children of Israel came down with this very same thing here. Exodus chapter 6. And we're going to look at verse 3. 6 and verse 3. Okay, let's go to verse 2. It says, and Yahweh spoke to Moshe and said to him, I am Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai. This is actually God, okay? Almighty God. But by my name, Yahweh, was I not known to them? Do you know why he appeared to Abraham in that manner and Abraham taught his children in that manner? Because Abraham was in Mesopotamia. And in Mesopotamia, there was a whole bunch of gods already there. And there was an almighty God that they were giving themselves over to, and they believed that. Okay? And these were the gods that the Anak, they call them Anakim or Anunnakis. That you may hear Anunnakis. Some people talk about Anunnakis all the times. Okay, Anu, Enki, whatever the case is, and all those Anunnaki. These were the gods that these guys were serving. Molech, sacrificing their children to Molech. This is where Abraham actually got the whole concept of taking his son, his only begotten son, to sacrifice his only begotten son from that which was being taught in Mesopotamia. But he didn't appear, Yahweh didn't appear to him as Yahweh because he would not have received Yahweh. He had to receive a God. And so he told him, I was the Almighty God. And so Moshe, when he led Moshe, not Moshe, I'm sorry, he led Abraham a little further on, okay? He showed him certain things, but he didn't appear to them as Yahweh. Later on, generations later, he's telling Moshe, this was me that appeared to your fathers. I'm the one who did that. And I appeared to them where they were because they weren't going to have anything to do with me if I came to them and told them my name, because all they knew were all these gods. That's all they knew. So they weren't going to hear what I had to say. So he was meeting them. This is Yahweh. And Yahweh wants you and I to do the very same thing. Meet the people where they are. Okay? So he met them as all different types of God. Look, here it goes. In verse 4, I have also established my covenant with them based upon where they were. This is a covenant, but this covenant is by spirit. But at this time, he was giving it to them by letter, based upon what they were able to understand. He wasn't giving it to them as that which is perfect, or something that is perfect, and when it comes, the darkness that was already there is going to pass away. No, he was letting the light come in very slowly. That's what he was doing. So here goes now. He was coming in partially, and so Abraham could actually move away from those gods that he was around, because that's what he was told. Move away from these people here and go to a place that I will show you, so you'll no longer have this influence, and you be with me, and I will direct you in the things that I want to direct you in. And you won't have all these people around you distracted you and taking you off course with all these other doctrines, or these other spirits moving around. You'll come to me. Well, this is what all of us have to do also if we're going to be dealing with Yahweh, because there are a lot of other spirits around. A lot of other spirits around. Okay? And Yahweh is not going to stop any of them, because he already told us, hey, do this over here, and if you do this, I will direct you. Okay? And he let you know that he comes to test you by allowing these other spirits to move there. And so they're going to test you to see if you're going to do, and I'm going to do what Yahweh showed us or not, or if we're going to go whoring after something else. Always going to be there. As Cain, he told you, this thing is going to always be at your door. I'm not going to take it away. You have to deal with it. Okay? You have to deal with it so you could bypass it. If you don't bypass it, you have no strength. You're the one who have to develop the strength, Cain, so you don't act like everything that's under this altar, moving based upon your own will, creating the things that's of your own will, and doing things based upon your base nature. Give it to the higher parties, and let everything that's of the base nature and under the altar be subject to the higher God. That's what you have. You have a higher man, which functions above the altar, or the altar and above. And you have the lower man, who is functioning below the altar, or right on the altar where everything is met, down. And you meet your higher man at the altar, your higher self, at the altar. And if you could take the energies that's within the lower man, which is everything under that altar, down to the base, and anywhere you want to go into the bottom of the spit further down, we could do that too. It's all up to us. Okay? And if you could take that and give that over by the determination that we have to put our own will down. and give it to the higher man, which the higher man is simply subject to the Father. It's going to do what the Father says, period, nothing else. If we're able to give ourselves over to the higher man now, then the energy of the lower man is going to be converted back to what it was before. But I told you, it has been hijacked. It has been hijacked and it's in the grave. Okay? It's in the grave. This is why he who they said descended into the lower parts of the earth, under the altar, okay, to those who are functioning according to their own will, creating things after their own will, and stuck in base passions, because this is the captive. Those who captivated us or held us captive were the ones who drew a third and threw them to the ground. We were captives. Adam and Eve listened to someone who held them captive in this area. They were here to help folks out, but they also got held captive. We all did. So now we have to get out of that, and something had to be given to us because we all forgot. This is where the letter came in. The letter came in, and the letter is a little bit of light. A little bit of light. And we just got done seeing that it's a school teacher that leads you to the light. Okay, we saw that Aaron didn't want to have anything to do with it, and the children of Israel, the leaders of the children of Israel, didn't want anything to do with it because it was light. And it had to be dealt with them slowly to get them, to kind of hook them and slowly pull them along. Yahweh appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because that's when he appeared to Abraham, Abraham taught his children. And that's what they knew Yahweh is. He says, but I didn't appear to them by my name, Moshe, which I'm appearing to you now with that. So it's time to take everybody a little further. This is what that is. Okay, now let's go ahead now and look at 1 Corinthians. Okay, 1 Corinthians chapter 9. And we're going to look at verse 19 first. Okay, chapter 9 and verse 19. Okay. Here it says, for although I am free and belong to no man, and every one of us has that. He belongs to no man. He could do what he wants to do. Every last one of us have that. But he's going to work for the body. So he's not just going to do what he wants to do, but he can. Okay? I belong to no man. I have made myself, by choice, a servant to all, because that's what the head of the body has required for everyone who is going to come in here and they're going to awake, is that they are working for a body. And that body have sent everyone in here that they wake up to assist others in waking up. No, you didn't come into this earth to become a millionaire. Yeah, it may happen, but that's not the reason we came in here. We came in here to reverence the Father. What did the Father send Adam and Eve in here for? To replenish this place here and make everything functional and set apart to him. All over again. That's the only duty that you and I have. However, we have all these frequencies that's hitting us every day based upon the world and its creation through the collective minds that are here, and we start to follow them. We start to follow that which is already set up before us. This looks really nice to our eyes. But the very things that look nice to us are the things that they control us with. They control us through our passions and through our desires. And that's why it is said in the scriptures, put to death the passions and desires that lurk in your members. This is why the garment was given to Israel, so they could look upon it, but not just the garment. They got to look upon what it means. And remember to keep those laws and not to go, it says, whoring after my eyes, which is my passions and desires. That's of the lower man, all that's below that altar. My own will, things that I want to create for me, and all the things that's of base nature. So I can remember that's not what I'm here for. But I'm here to wake up, take the lower man, give him over to the higher man, have them become one, so they could function as a unit serving the one who sent me in here. That's what it's about. Okay? So 19 here now, I'm free. So I made myself a servant to all that I might win the more. I may win the more. Okay, now in verse 20 here, it says, and to the Yahudim, who got nothing on anybody else, okay, but they got the law, nevertheless, but they're still stuck. They can't move from it. They won't listen to the prophets. That's why they kept getting sacked over and over again, because they didn't want to do that. This is why they want to kill Yahshua and all the apostles, because they're still stuck on just the letter. So to the Yahudim, I became as the Yadai. I stuck to the letter of the law and slowly tried to show them more. Yahshua did too. Yahshua stuck to the letter for the most part and tried to show them a little bit more. So now here goes that. That I may win the Yadim. And to those who are subject to the law, as subject to the law, that I might win those who are subject to the law. This is Moshe now. It's not the universal law, because everyone has to become subject to that. To those who are outside the law, as one outside the law. Not that I was outside the law of Yahweh, but that I was within the law through Moshe, that I might win those who are outside the law. Now, this is a little funny the way it's been written here, because those who translated this really was about the law. But what Shaul was basically doing, whoever was not according to the law, he was functioning in the universal law by the Spirit, not by the letter, and he would meet them where they were to direct them in the Spirit, that they may also wake up. Because the message to the Gentiles was that Messiah was within them too, in everybody. And a lot of the Yahudim wasn't awake to that. Okay, and they thought themselves better than everyone else. However, obviously, that's not how it was. Okay, so now in verse 21, verse 22, to the weak I became weak, that I might win them. Not that he became weak, but he became like the weak. Okay, to the drunkard, he didn't become a drunk to win them. No, but he met the drunk where the drunk was, in his own weakness, to direct him away from that. To the one who was the homosexual, that's a weakness too, yes. Same-sex attraction is a weakness. He met them where they were. Not that it's still not an abomination, but they're all children of the Most High that are stuck in the base nature, doing their own will, which is taking us further and further down into the bottomless pit. But our job is to help them to come out of it. So we have to meet them where they are and direct them slowly but surely out of it. Okay, so now this is verse 22. I have become all things to all men, that I might by all means save some, because he knows everybody's not going to be saved. So he's going to be saving son. Now, let's go over to Deuteronomy here, chapter 8. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 8. Now, when we wake up, we know that Moshe is not 100% what Yahweh is saying. Okay, just as Moshe said, he said, what I'm teaching you right now, it's already in you. Now, how is it in us, or the children of Israel? Now, let's go back to the picture of the temple. We have the most holy place. And we have in the most holy place, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Spirit, blood, and water. Okay, the three that bears witness. Out of water comes all the creation. So everything that comes down to the holy place has come down by means of the water. So everything it has come out of the only begotten Son, the active part of the Father, the creative part of the Father. That's where it's come out of. Everyone has come out of that. Now, when we come out of that, we could still move and do what we want to do. We could, so we come into this lower world and we got taken up by the passions that was in that of the stellar forces, and we dove down further into a lower world. And we got stuck. This is below the altar. Now, others had to come to try to help us out. Or should I say, we had to come to try to help the first ones out. And we also got stuck. So now we're trying to come out, right? So now we have to come out by what Yahweh says, the every word of Yahweh, but the every word of Yahweh is not necessarily the every word of the letter of the law that Moshe laid down. When we wake up, we have to know what the Father said and live by that, because Moshe said one was going to be coming, and that's the one that you're going to listen to. Listen to the words that this one says, because he's going to help you to see what the law is about. He's going to magnify this, help you and I to understand it, shine light on it, so we can see it better, and that we could wake up. So in Deuteronomy 8 here, so in verse 3, it says here, this is how Yahweh works to everybody. When we start doing things the way we want to, and we're doing things based upon that the base nature or our own will, no one could tell us anything. He humbled us and allowed us to hunger and fed us with manna. Okay, now the children of Israel ate manna in the wilderness, but remember we told you about the hidden manna that was in the most holy place, and that's the manna that comes down. It is spirit. It's the water that comes down to everyone who is willing to receive it under the altar. Yahshua told that woman at the well, he says, yeah, Yaakov and them dug this well, and if you drink that water, you're going to become thirsty again. But I got a water, the creative power of the Father that's within me, that if you take this water, it will become a well of living water. You won't become thirsty again. No, you can't become thirsty again. He said, the one who is born of spirit and water, it's the one who is going to be born again and enter the kingdom of heaven. Notice, of water, spirit and water. This water is that which was given by the only begotten Son, which is in the most holy, if you've got a temple, coming down to the individual in this physical world, but we have to give space for that water to come in. We can't just keep on doing what we want to do. So the every word of the Father is that water, but that is given to us slowly, that which is impartial or partial, is passing away as more of it is coming in. The light is coming in slowly, but surely. Okay, so he did all these things and led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness in order to humble us. We have to be humbled. Every last one of us have to be humbled. That's how we get there. Okay? To humble you, test and prove us, and know what was in our hearts, to see whether we would keep those laws or not. This is before us. If we're able to, there's a graduation, okay, in that which is representative, or that which Shem represents. Our 10th that is holy to Yahweh. If we're able to do that. Under that, there are those who actually want to do well, and Yosef represents those, but they haven't been able to give themselves to the Father totally. But they're trying, but they haven't gotten that. They are distracted by many things, so they haven't gone there. So that which Yosef represents, because remember, Yosef is going to be in the house or in the tent of Shem. So Shem is going to be over everything, and Yosef is going to be in his tent. And then there's another set now, a third set, which is going to be given the reward of those who are outside the gate. And they won't be allowed to come in and to do what the other guys are doing, at least for a time. And those which Ham represents. These are the ones who have been cursed, but the curse is not to just beat them up. The curse is a corrective action. That's what the curse is. It's a corrective action. Now I have to correct you, clean you up really well, so you could make the journey too. That's what it is. So we're going to find life by the every word that Yahweh spoke, and every word that Yahweh spoke is not all that Moshe gave. If that was a situation, Yahweh's salvation would have already come. Now, nevertheless, Yahshua knew this, and when Yahshua was being tempted, okay, in Matthew 4:4, you can look at it yourself. I'm not going to go there today. He said, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes forth from the Father. What's the word that comes from the Father? In the beginning was the Word. The Word comes forth from the Father. And man must live by that every word. The only begotten Son, because that is the covenant in you by spirit. Not by letter. It's in you by spirit. And as we wake up, we can't live by the letter if we're seeing what the spirit is about. We can live by anything we want to. But if we wake up and know for sure what's going on, we would actually be transgressing if we now went and try to kill an animal, take an animal's life, to say we need to do this in order for our sins to be forgiven. We already know better. We know better. Our conscience couldn't move with that because it wouldn't hold it. And our conscience would have to be clear. Okay, now let's go over to Deuteronomy 30. Deuteronomy 30. We know this very well. Okay, 30. Look at verse 13. Okay. Let's go to verse 11. I'm sorry. Verse 11. He says here, for this law which I command you this day is not hidden from you. It's not hidden from you. Now, this is the situation now. If you go back to the scriptures, Yahweh says, okay, that he's not far from us, that he can save us. Excuse me. He says, it's not far from us that he can't save us. His arm is not short that he can't do the things that we ask of him to save us. But he said our own disobedience have created some stigma in there that we have caused certain things to not naturally work for us. We have caused that. He says our own sins, our own disobedience have created some problems there that the arm that is strong enough to save us won't, because of what we do. Because we're not working in tandem with the body for the body to work with us. That's what we're doing. We're doing this. Okay? This is the issue that we're looking at right now. Okay, so now in 30, it says, okay, so it's not hidden from you, nor is it beyond your reach, except for if we're not going to do it. He says, it is not up in heaven so that you have to ask, who will ascend up into heaven for us and bring it to us, so that we may hear it and then do it. In a sense, Moshe was doing this, putting it on words, and in words on it as letters. Nor is it beyond the sea, so that you have to ask, who will cross the sea and bring it to us, so that we may hear it and then do it. It says here, the law is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your hearts. It's in your mouth and in your hearts. In that vessel that you have, it's in your heart. It's at the altar, and it's in the words that you will speak if you take control of that heart again. So you may obey it. That's where it's at. So you and I may obey it. Now, this new covenant that is being set up for us is not a new covenant. It's the covenant that we walked away from. It's the covenant that we forgot. This is actually what we're talking about. The covenant that we actually forgot. The covenant that we have received by spirit, not by letter. But it was given to us in letter. Why? Why was the law given? It says because of sin, because of transgression. Until what? Until the seed would come. So it's given to us until the seed came, and the seed is actually the only begotten Son, Messiah, which the law leads you to. The seed is the seed of Yahweh. And when you and I have made the right sacrifice for that seed to come in and dwell with us, it says it's possible for you and I not to sin again, because the seed remains in us. The water, the only begotten Son, it remains. It stays there. It's living water that if we take it, it wells up in us, reminding us of who we are, reminding us of all that have been spoken to us, reminding us of the instructions that we received when we first came in here to help the earth. It's going to be reminding us. That's what it does. We start waking up. We wake up because of that seed, the word that is sent into the earth. And the word in the word is life, is light. Okay? Or life. And whether the light, the word is life to mankind or light to mankind, whatever it's going to be, is there to assist mankind in returning. But we don't like it. We don't like it because it causes us to have to put down our own will, stop creating what we want, stop living in the base nature that we live in, and give it all up to the Father. So the Father will use that very same will that we have for his own purpose. Will use the same power of creativity that we have in the lower man for his purpose. To use the very nature that we have to turn that base nature now into a holy nature, his nature, that he may use it, or use the body, or use the vessel for his purpose. But it can't happen unless we first empty. We have to empty the self. We have to put that down. When we do, then the law, the spirit, the covenant, okay, which is that letter, it flows in. This is light. It flows into the being, into your heart, and assist us as we wake up to take the lower man and give the lower man over to the higher man, so that the Father may be served through that same higher man in all the things that we do.
And we'll close with that.